All right, there we are. Saving to the cloud right now. Okay. All right, so this session is how to reverse engineer a PICO question. And this idea basically came out of my own personal experiences, both as a literature searcher. I do a lot of searching, and I have done a lot of searching for both students, graduates, and faculty over the years, and my personal experience helping students with PICO questions. So many programs, both nursing and pharmacy and medicine, will have an evidence-based. They'll either have an EBP, an evidence-based practice component that goes through many different courses, or they'll have specific coursework that covers the principles of evidence-based research. And there's usually some kind of assignment involved. And in my experience, usually the bar is set pretty high for these assignments. So usually, because like for an evidence-based practice project, there's an expectation that the output for a student is going to be something that's going to make recommendations for practice. They have to require apex level evidence. So you're normally expected to provide meta-analysis, systematic reviews, randomized controlled trials, and if you're doing any kind of meaning study, a high quality qualitative study. And that's great. It's important to be able to discern the kind of evidence. The problem is that oftentimes that evidence, because we're talking about apex level evidence, it's to be smaller than other types of evidence to begin with. And you see this anytime you look at an evidence pyramid. Your randomized controlled trials are tapering. They're at the tapered end of the pyramid, and then above them you've got a smaller cluster of systematic reviews and meta-analyses and whatnot. That's one problem. The other problem is that from topic to topic, clinical research varies in terms, the literature varies in terms of its breadth and depth of coverage. So it's a case of feast and famine. It's kind of like every time you pick a topic and you go search it, you're spinning the roulette wheel and you're hoping that you picked a good number, but oftentimes you don't, and you come up with a topic that has very, very little research. So this workshop is really for those of us who find ourselves in the position of a literature famine, and I'm going to show you some strategies that I use to help students to find other options within their topic and focus on those. So I've got two sample PICOs here. I'm going to run through them both. One is an example of a feast PICO, and the other one is a famine PICO. And we'll just grab these and go. I'm just going to copy and paste the highlighted terms, and I'm going to switch back and forth between my browsers because it's quicker to search this way. So I'm going to go into PubMed, and I'm just going to enter these words or diabetic or diabetes. Let's go diabetes or diabetic. And I'm going to these as search sets, just as I found them in the PICO. So each one is going to be its own separate arm. Okay, so the first PICO is in adult diabetic patients, does a Mediterranean diet compared to a vegan diet, provide glycemic control over a 12-month period. And in both cases, both this one and second PICO, which I'll read out in a minute, neither one of these are questions that I have personally researched before. I just basically came up with the questions for this exercise. I have previously searched them, though, I'll tell you that. So, okay, so I'm just putting in my terms. I'm going to put them all together here in a minute. So got Mediterranean diet, vegan diet. And as I'm going, I'm making sure for any terms that I want to search as a phrase, I'm putting double quotations around them and searching them that way. Okay, got vegan diet now and glycemic control. We're going to stop with our O, with our output. glycemic control, or yeah, we'll just go with glycemic control. Might have to revisit that one. We'll come back to it. Okay, so now I've got all four. I've got diabetes or diabetic, Mediterranean diet, vegan diet, and glycemic control. So now what I'm going to do, and I can do this in PubMed, I'm just going to put a hash mark, £, and then these all together, £1, £2, and £3, and £4. All right. Add those in, and there we go. So this one, isn't it interesting? Okay, so with this one, we have 3 results. It's not as many as I had hoped or got yesterday, but it serves our purpose in that several of these, first of all, at least 2 of these, actually all 3 of these, they're fairly recent, so we don't have to worry about any of these being outside of our 5-year limit. 2019, 2 of them, and 1 of them was published in 2022. And lo and behold, all of them are, 2 of them are systematic reviews, 1 of them is a narrative review. So the narrative review is not really going to be as helpful to us in terms of its evidentiary weighting, but the top and the bottom ones are dietary patterns and management of type 2 diabetes, systematic review of randomized controlled trials. Now that's really, if you're looking for a strong evidence-based practice type study, that really is kind of what we're looking for. That's one of them anyway. And then down here at the bottom, plant predominant eating patterns, how effective are they for treating cardiometabolic health outcomes? That one's not quite as focused on diabetes as the first one, but it's within the ballpark. So this is fairly promising, and I could do some tweaking to make it probably a little bit more relevant. I would also, first thing I'd want to do is have a look at this study and see if I can glean anything more out of it. Great thing about systematic review is that, among other things, it is a bibliography, and you can basically plunder its findings, because it's looking at other studies, lower level studies, particularly randomized controlled trials. See if you can find a good randomized controlled trial in there. 2 for the price of 1. That's not bad. So this is an example of yeast. Let's see what happens with the other peak you have there. I'm just going to erase that first search set, and I'm going to put in our second ones. So the second PICO is in patients with fibromyalgia. Does gastric bypass surgery compared to exercise therapy provide better long-term pain management over a 24-month trial? All right, so I'm just going to start entering my terms again here. Fibromyalgia. Searching each one of these, and grab the next one, gastric bypass surgery. Going to search this one as a phrase, so I'll put quotation marks around it. And paying attention to what we're doing here. Okay, so with the first one I got, with the fibromyalgia, I got in the vicinity of 13,000 search hits. With this one, I'm getting 2,700. I do enough searching to know that makes me nervous. That's not a goodly amount. So I'm going to go ahead and supplement. I know that another word for gastric bypass surgery, a more general term, a broader, is bariatric surgery. So I'm going to add that one in here. All right. I'm going to combine these 2 search phrases with or. And okay, get an extra 20,000. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to improve that search set and give us more to work with. All right. So on to exercise therapy. I'm just going to put in the word exercise without therapy. I'm sorry if you're hearing mechanical noises. It's outside my window. They're doing gardening work in the portico below. All right, so 543,000. Good. And now I put in my final term here, pain management. Now, I know that the T is supposed to be part of PICOs now. I don't often search with them, and the reason I don't T elements to my searches is because I usually find that when you're searching just your first 4 elements, you will frequently come up with nothing. You add a 5th element, it's even harder. And the other reason I don't search the time element, generally speaking, is because it's not something that most databases index for. So it's really, really tough to find anything. I will use it. I will use the T element as a selection criterion at the end to go through the studies that I've got and see if they have any reference to a time period. But it's not something I actively search for because it's pretty hard to search. Okay, we got pain management here. Got 72,678 results. All right. So now let's do the same thing as we did with our first search and combine them all. So we're going to combine number 6, number 8, number 9, and number 10. Number 8 and number 9 and number 10. All right. Go ahead and click add those in there. Okay, now this sometimes happens. This is the other end of the spectrum. We got absolutely nothing for putting in all of our search terms. And this, I would say this happens close to 50% of the time. In a situation like this where you think you've got a really good search question, a really good PICO, certainly sparks my interest, but you can't find anything. Well, in situations like this, I go to my tips for topic selection for EBP projects. Okay, I only just wrote these down, but they've kind of been guiding principles for me probably about as long as I've been doing this. So, the first thing that I suggest, and this is more something for future reference. You know, I know that y'all are far enough into the semester, and some of you I realize have already done your EBP projects for your coursework. But if you find yourself in this situation again, I recommend you want to pre-search your ideas before locking in a specific PICO with your instructor, okay? For the very reason that we just saw. Because anytime you're picking a topic that you're not familiar with, and especially if you're not familiar with the literature behind the topic, you really are flying blind, and you want to you want to change that. There's a cynical phrase that political campaigners used to say, something to the effect, elections are too important to leave in the hands of voters. Now, I'm neither a politician nor have I been involved in elections per se, so I don't know the truth of that in that context. But I can tell you, if you translate that into a search context, a literature search context, it's very apt. You know, your top selection is too important to leave to chance. So you don't want to be guessing whether or not you've got a good topic before you select it. You want to know before you select it that it's a good topic. So I always recommend pre-search your ideas before locking in a specific PICO with your instructor, settling on anything. And because you may have to change your to a different topic anyway, it's good to start with a pool of potential PICO topics. So I would suggest having certainly more than one. It's good to have 3, maybe 4 options to choose from. That way, you know, you certainly increase your odds of at least one of them having, you know, a good supply of keeper level studies. It's always good to have options. So, and then as part of your pre-search, you want to go through and you want to search all 4 of your PICO elements, just as we did just now. And that's how you find out, okay, this really isn't working out so well. I need to make some changes. At this point, when you find yourself where we just found ourselves here with our fibromyalgia search, where you got nothing, what I usually do, especially if, you know, the student that I'm working with isn't, you know, strongly invested in intervention or the comparison, is I will break apart these arms, the arms of the PICO, and I will search the patient population and I will search the outcome, okay? And the reason I search the patient population and the outcome is that is usually where there is the most variance in the literature. You can think of the P and the O, the patient population and the outcome, as one hair of like the crosshairs of a gun sight, and the intervention and the comparison are the others. And when you put those 2 together, you get one specific spot, this one dot that's right in the center of the 2 And that's where the most relevant research is. The problem is it may be small pool of resources. It's insufficient for your purposes. But if you take the intervention and the comparison out, you look at a wider spectrum of potential interventions and maybe pick one that has more research support. So let's go back into advanced search here in PubMed, and remembering that in PubMed, advanced search is where the search history is kept, okay? So let's have a look here. Fibromyalgia is our patient population. Pain management is our outcome of interest. So let's search number 6. And let's search for, oh gosh, hang on a second, get rid of that one. Number 6, hashtag 6, and hashtag 10 for pain management. Add those in to advanced search them. And there we go. We got 982 search results, okay? So now what we can do is we can just go through our article type filters to filter for specific study designs. We'll start with systematic reviews, and let's see how many systematic reviews we have there. 86 isn't bad, okay? Now we know that we need to focus on more recent studies, so we'll go ahead and we'll limit to the last 5 years. That still gives us a pool of 46. And let's look through cannabis-based medicines for chronic neuropathic pain in adults, psychological therapies for the management of chronic and recurrent pain in children and adolescents. Nothing really spot on with fibromyalgia until we get here. Efficacy of manual therapy on pain, impact of disease and quality of life in the treatment of fibromyalgia, systematic review. Now this is pain physicians. This is looking at it from a medical perspective. Might not be most relevant for a nurse context. Next one down, self-management of chronic widespread pain, including fibromyalgia, systematic review and meta-analysis. Chronic widespread pain, including fibromyalgia, has a prevalence of up to 15% and associated with substantial morbidity. Quality, okay, it looks like it's summarizing both the background and the conclusion here, but we'll keep looking. Supporting psychosocial and behavioral self-management is increasingly important for CWP. The psychological interventions show limited benefit. We systematically reviewed the effectiveness of interventions applying self-management principles for CWP, including fibromyalgia. And the point of this exercise is not to pick out an alternative strategy, but just to show you, what is available here. So transcranial direct current stimulation effective in treatment of pain and fibromyalgia. Again, that's a medical treatment, not something for all contexts. But here's one that might be acupuncture therapy for fibromyalgia, a systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials. And that is high quality evidence for something that is non-medical and might be relevant. Right. Non-invasive brain stimulation, et cetera. Systematic review of atypical psychotics in chronic pain management. Systematic review of intravenous ketamine. You're going to find a lot, particularly in a database like PubMed, you're going to find a lot of medical interventions just because it's predominantly a biomedical database. We could do the same thing again. We'll deselect systematic review and we'll look for randomized control trials. And again, we found a few here. Pain-related activity management patterns and function in patients with fibromyalgia syndrome. But you see what I'm doing here. I'm going through and I'm looking at a wider spectrum of potential interventions. And we still have to make selections. We still have to contextualize to our own practice and scope of practice. But you certainly have more options if you're looking at the spectrum of what's available for a patient population in a particular outcome. And if you're not happy with the results here, you can always change the outcome from pain management to something else. One of the things that patients with fibromyalgia struggle with is the ability to sleep. You could look at sleep quality as a potential outcome. There's lots of things you look at, many different ways you can turn it. But this is where, like I say, you get your most variance in the literature, your patient population and your outcome. So this is one way to switch things around if you're not too far down the path. Now, if you find yourself in a situation where you've already committed to a particular patient population and a particular intervention, one thing you can do is go down to strategy 3, and strategy 4. Select the E&I arm. So let's go back here to PubMed. So now we're, instead of focusing on population and outcome, we're going to focus on population and intervention. So let's look at fibromyalgia and number 6 and number 8, fibromyalgia and bariatric surgery. Make sure that right there. Yep. Add those two in. Okay, didn't have any for. Okay. Well, it's not looking real good for bariatric surgery and fibromyalgia. Well, hang on a second. Can't use literature review because that's not a specific EBP-based design. Fibromyalgia and obesity, comprehensive systematic review and meta-analysis, but that's not really looking at the intervention. That's looking at fibromyalgia and obesity as comorbid factors. Consequences of bariatric surgery on outcomes in rheumatic diseases. Now, fibromyalgia is a rheumatic disease, so maybe we'll find something that we can use there. It's pretty general, though. May not pass muster if I was taking this to a faculty member, just because it's not specifically about fibromyalgia. It does mention it among the keywords. Let's have a look at the abstract. Obesity is associated with numerous comorbidities, including some rheumatoid conditions. Through adipose-derived inflammation, obesity has been shown to induce increased initiation, progression, and adverse responses on outcomes of rheumatic diseases. Bariatric surgery is being increasingly used thanks to its positive effects on major comorbidities such as type 2 diabetes mellitus and hypertension. Consequently, surgically induced weight and adipose tissue losses might play a role in the course of rheumatic conditions. Present narrative, okay, it's a narrative literature review. Aims to provide rheumatologists with an update on both positive and negative effects of bariatric surgery and the rheumatic outcomes. Okay, so it's just a narrative review, so it's not what we need, not what we're looking for. We'll keep looking down the list here. Yeah, it doesn't look like any of these are exactly what we're looking for. So we probably, with this particular example, we probably would need to go back to our patient population and our outcomes and try and find a more focused intervention that has more studies associated with it. We could try. We did find one a systematic review of randomized controlled trials of acupuncture, so we could try that. So let's put that one in here. Acupuncture. See how we do here. All right, so we got 65. Acupuncture therapy, fibromyalgia, that may be the one that we just spotted before. So let's go through here and see if we have any other RCTs. Got a few here. Randomized controlled trial of acupuncture for women with fibromyalgia, group acupuncture with traditional Chinese medicine diagnosis based point selection. Okay, so that's fairly recent, so that would be within our scope. Comparison between acupuncture and nutraceutical treatment of migrantins in patients with fibromyalgia. Prospective randomized controlled trial. So this looks promising. This might be something to throw together into a PICO and TEMP. So we could go back here to our PICO, and if we wanted, we could modify it as gastric bypass surgery compared to exercise therapy, provide better long-term pain management. At the very least, we could switch out gastric bypass surgery for acupuncture and see how we got on with that. I won't do that just because I leave the original the way it is, but that is something that we could do. And we could do the same thing again if we wanted to search for, let's say that we were interested in qualitative studies, a high quality qualitative study as part of our research. Now we know from experience that the article type filter in PubMed doesn't include qualitative studies, but if we go down to MESH, we can do a qualitative search for qualitative MESH heading, and there we are, qualitative research. We could add that one to the mix as well. Go ahead and search for that one. And then once we have it on our palette, we can go back through, find, let's go with fibromyalgia and puncture in the last 5 years, number 19 and number 23. When you have just 65, it's probably just as easy just to go through and search for them by hand. But just for the sake of the exercise, I thought I'd show you what that looks like. It didn't work for the acupuncture one. It might work for one of the other ones. Let's go back through and have a look at, oh, sorry, number 10, that was pain management. Okay, so we want to look at 6 and 10. Number 12. And number 23. See what we get for that. We got 6 results. All right. Medication and the patient-doctor relationship, a qualitative study with patients suffering from fibromyalgia. That's too far outside of our target. So we'll just apply the 5-year filter and see what remains. Yeah, we got 2 studies. Chronic idiopathic musculoskeletal pain in youth, qualitative study. Opioid prescribing patterns and patient use in postoperative pain. Neither one of them, none of one of them exactly what we're looking for, but it illustrates the point of concept. So this is a good strategy for expand your search horizons. You know, if you like the core of your search, the core of your PICO, and you try and stay to it, stay close to it. Particularly search strategy 3, searching the P and O arms. That is a good strategy for giving yourself other options. If you're really set on your intervention, you can try searching your P and I elements and see how you've done from there. But that's the core of the strategy. Just to summarize what I've said earlier, pre-searching is always a good idea. If you don't pre-search your topic, it's kind of like throwing darts at a dartboard blindfold on. You just don't know where your topic is going to land, and you don't know if you're going to have to keep searching or not. Something else to keep in mind, particularly if you are working on a topic that's going to be more than 1 semester, you really want to pre-search your topic in that situation. And you want to do that because with that situation, you're going to have to go back and find more keeper studies, which means you're going to have to go back to the same databases after like maybe a 3-4 month hiatus and do the same search again. So it's good to know at the outset that you have a topic that has enough good studies in it to get you by for both the first semester and the second semester. So pre-searching is absolutely critical and will really, really stand you in good stead. All righty. Well, that is that's my spiel. So do y'all have any questions?
Very helpful information. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure, Yamarai. Okay. All right. Well, if there are questions, again, you should have my my email in the chat if you want to contact me. It's ms13184@uthct.edu. If you have questions about a PICO that you're working on, or you need help with a search, just let me know. Shoot me an email and we'll get to it. Now, I've got to tell you, because I've got a backlog because I've been trying to juggle 2 jobs, and like I say, I lost access to my UT email last Friday. I've got some catch up to do, but you will go into the queue, and I will get around to you just as quickly as I can. So we'll try and get your bibliographies back to you just as soon as possible. All right. Well, thank you all for your time, and I hope you have a blessed day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Dr. Skinner.
Yeah, my pleasure.